I was naive, cheated on my husband, and blamed him for being infertile, then left him for an entrepreneur, thinking I deserved more. But the entrepreneur bailed after I got pregnant. It's been 3 years, and I reached out to my ex, thinking he was mature enough to forgive and be a father figure, but he rejected us. I still remember the first time Dana and I talked about having kids. We were barely out of college, sitting on a thrifted couch in our first apartment in Durham, a pizza box between us and a dozen what-ifs floating in the air. Back then, everything felt possible. My name is Ethan, I'm 35, and I work as a high school counselor here in North Carolina. I've been married to Dana, my college sweetheart, for almost 11 years now. She runs a small boutique downtown, clothes, candles, that sort of thing. She's always had an eye for design, and her place feels like walking into a Pinterest board that smells like rosemary and ambition. We had a good rhythm for a long time. Lazy Sundays, shared dreams, quiet intimacy. For a while, the only thing missing was the pitter-patter of little feet. We thought it would just happen, like it did for everyone else. A month or two of trying, then the smiling stick, the celebration, the next chapter. It didn't happen like that for us. After 2 years of hopeful waiting and whispered prayers, we started seeing specialists. Blood work, scans, awkward conversations under fluorescent lighting. At first, they thought it might be Dana, something hormonal, maybe a minor imbalance. But after more rounds of testing, the doctor sat me down. Male factor infertility. Not just low count, nearly none. Some rare genetic condition with a name that sounded like Latin for failure. I'll never forget the look on Dana's face in that exam room. Not pity, not sadness, just silence. Her fingers were tied around her purse, knuckles pale. I tried to crack a joke, something about how I always wanted to be one in a million, but it died in my throat. We walked to the car without speaking. She stared out the passenger window the whole drive home. After that, something in her shifted. We kept talking about options, adoption, surrogacy, donor sperm, but Dana stopped using words like we. It became, you should look into that, or maybe you could talk to someone. She'd nod but never engage, change the subject to work, or pretend she had a headache. I tried everything I could think of. Adjusted my schedule at the school so I could be home more. Cooked dinner. Left notes in her bag. Sometimes she'd smile. Most times, she wouldn't. At night, I'd lie in bed listening to her breathing. Sometimes I wasn't sure if she was awake, too. I wanted to reach for her, but the space between us felt like a canyon. She wasn't angry, exactly. It was something quieter, disappointment curdled into detachment. I still caught glimpses of the woman I loved, but they were rare and fleeting. Like watching sunlight on water through a fogged-up window. People saw us around town and thought we were doing fine. Smiling in photos, sharing coffee, showing up to birthday parties. But they didn't see how she'd turn away when I tried to talk about adoption. How she flinched when she saw baby strollers. How she stopped calling me babe and started just saying Ethan. The truth was, Dana was grieving. And I guess I was too. Only I was trying to build something out of the pieces, and she was trying not to look at the wreckage. We still went to bed in the same house. Still shared meals. Still answered the door together when neighbors stopped by. But I could feel it. Something fundamental had cracked. The kind of quiet breaking that doesn't make a sound until it's too late. And somehow, I knew. We were both waiting for something to either save us or finally break us apart. I started coming home earlier. Shifted my last appointment at the school so I could be through the door by 4:30, hoping maybe just being there more would change something. Some days I'd find Dana curled up on the couch, phone in hand, zoning out to home renovation reels with the volume too low to hear. Other days, she wouldn't be home at all. She'd leave a note on the counter, out meeting a vendor or charity thing downtown. No heart, no smiley face, just her name scribbled like a receipt. I tried not to take it personally. Told myself she needed time. But when months go by and the person you love won't meet your eyes, it starts to wear you down. You're always so calm about everything, she said one night out of nowhere. We were sitting at the dinner table, half-eaten lasagna between us. Like it's just some problem to solve. I blinked. Would you rather I panic? She rolled her eyes. No, I don't know. I can't pretend it's fine. I'm not pretending. I kept my voice steady. I'm trying to find a way forward. Well, maybe there isn't one. That hung in the air for a while. She got up, took her plate to the sink, and started rinsing it like we hadn't just shattered something invisible between us. It kept going like that, conversations that stopped halfway, touches that felt rehearsed. One night I reached for her in bed, and she pulled away, murmuring, "Not tonight." I stared at the ceiling for hours afterward, wondering when "not tonight" had started meaning maybe never again. Still, I held on. Because that's what love is, right? Sticking around when it's hard. Holding space. Trying. Even when the other person stops trying back. Around that time, she started talking about a man she met at a local charity event. Colin. Owned a couple of restaurants downtown. Big personality, apparently. Donated a lot. Had a jet ski. She brought him up like he was someone we both knew. Colin said that fundraiser might move to spring, she'd say while unloading groceries. Or, Colin told me this story about a guy who faked a Yelp review war. At first, I didn't think much of it. People meet people. Maybe she needed someone outside this thing we were trapped in. But then I noticed how her voice changed when she said his name lighter. Like she got to take a breath when she talked about him. I didn't say anything. I told myself she needed some air, a break from the heaviness. I still trusted her. But the gap between us widened. She stopped mentioning adoption. Anytime I brought it up, she brushed it off. Let's not talk about that right now. She'd say it while grabbing her bag to head out, or flipping through her emails, eyes darting anywhere but mine. She didn't seem angry anymore. Just uninterested. Like I was background noise she couldn't mute. One night, after she'd fallen asleep on the couch, her phone lit up. I didn't mean to look, but it was right there. A message from Colin. You shouldn't be with someone who makes you feel like this. That was the moment something inside me shifted. I didn't feel anger, just a deep, hollow ache. The kind that makes your chest tighten like it's bracing for impact. I didn't confront her. Not then. Maybe I didn't want to know for sure. Or maybe I already did. I lay awake that night, listening to the hum of the fridge and the soft creak of the ceiling fan, wondering how long love could survive in a house where no one spoke the truth anymore. I had just finished signing off on a big fundraising proposal at school, something that might finally get new equipment for our special ed classrooms, when I got the call from the fertility clinic. Our first payment had gone through, and they were confirming the next appointment. I hung up feeling like maybe, just maybe, we were making progress. When I got home that night, Dana was already there. Sitting at the kitchen table, hands folded like she was waiting for a job interview. She didn't look up when I walked in. I talked to the clinic today, I said, trying to sound upbeat. They confirmed everything. We're all set for next month's cycle. She didn't answer. Dana. She finally looked up. Her face was blank, like she'd turned herself off. I'm not doing it. I felt the breath catch in my chest. What do you mean? I'm not doing the treatment, she said flatly. I'm not going through all that. It's not what I want anymore. I blinked, trying to process. We've been planning this for months. I know, she said, but things have changed. I sat down slowly. Okay, then let's talk about it. If this isn't what you want, we can look at it. I've been seeing someone. It felt like the room shifted sideways. My mind scrambled for something else she could have meant. A therapist. A spiritual guide. Anyone but what I knew she was actually saying. Colin? I asked, barely above a whisper. She nodded. For how long? Her voice didn't even flinch. Since February. That was 4 months ago. And now you're leaving? I asked, still not fully believing it. She didn't look ashamed. Just tired. Yes. I nodded slowly, still staring at the grain of the table. And the treatments? I canceled my side weeks ago. So you let me keep planning. Let me make payments. Let me believe. I didn't ask you to, she snapped, sharper now. You wanted to play savior. Like always. Her words hit harder than I expected. I had never seen her like this. Cold, distant, almost bored. I tried to say something, anything. But the words didn't come. You're not angry? She asked after a long silence, like she was surprised. I shook my head. No. I think I'm just empty. She didn't say anything else. Just stood up, grabbed a packed duffel bag from behind the couch, and walked to the door. I'll come back for the rest later. I stayed seated. She opened the door, paused, and looked back like she was expecting something, maybe a plea, maybe an insult. I gave her neither. And then she was gone. The silence that followed was deafening. Over the next few days, I moved like a ghost through our house. The laundry bin still had her shirts in it. Her shoes were still lined up by the door. I should have thrown them out. I didn't. I canceled the clinic payments. I stopped answering calls from mutual friends. I slept on the couch. The bedroom was too full of memories. At work, I smiled when I needed to. No one asked questions. I lost 15 pounds without trying. People thought I was just working too hard. They had no idea I was quietly unraveling. I didn't tell anyone she left. I couldn't bring myself to say the words out loud. Because once I said them, it would all be real. Dana didn't waste any time. One day she was walking out the front door with a duffel bag, and by the end of that same week, she'd moved into Colin's place. A penthouse downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows and furniture that looked like it had never been touched. I found out through a mutual friend who saw her at a rooftop party, laughing in a white jumpsuit and holding a glass of champagne. She looked radiant. Lighter. Like the past 11 years of our marriage had never even happened. She stopped posting on her main social media but started showing up in tagged photos, lounging by pools, smiling at private tastings, wearing clothes that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. It was like she'd been reborn into someone else's life. One without baggage. One without me. Apparently Colin liked to celebrate. Dinner parties on weeknights, boat trips on weekends. Dana leaned right into it. She even started referring to herself as Dana Lee again, her maiden name, like erasing me was part of the transformation. I didn't hate her for it. Not then. Mostly, I just felt like I was watching someone I used to know from behind glass. She looked happy, maybe even free. Then came the twist. A few weeks later, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. I know this is weird, but I thought you should know. I'm pregnant. I stared at it for a long time, thinking maybe it was a mistake. Then I read it again. The area code was local. I replied simply, "Who is this?" She answered a minute later. "Dana." I sat on my couch for nearly an hour, rereading the message over and over, trying to make sense of it. Pregnant. After all that. She hadn't wanted to try treatments with me. Had told me flat out that parenthood wasn't the future she wanted. But now she was pregnant. Naturally. Unexpectedly. With his child. The next morning, I didn't go into work. I called out sick for the first time in years and spent most of the day just sitting at the kitchen table, where she'd told me she was leaving. Dana sent a follow-up text 2 days later. Said it wasn't planned, but that she believed it was a sign. Said she felt hopeful. That maybe this was her second chance. I didn't respond. At first, Colin played the part. He went to early appointments, took her to brunch after ultrasounds, even posted a picture of her hand resting on her belly with the caption, "My girl's glowing." I tried not to look, but it was like rubbernecking a wreck on the freeway. By the time she was 5 months along, the tone shifted. Dana showed up at the school one afternoon. I was walking to my car when I saw her standing near the visitor lot, wearing a bulky sweater despite the heat. "I thought you should hear it from me," she said, not meeting my eyes. "He's pulling away." I didn't say anything. "He says he never wanted kids," she went on, voice low. "That I tricked him. That he's not cut out for this kind of life." I looked at her for the first time in what felt like forever. Her face was tired. Eyes puffy. Shoulders small. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel pity either. Just a strange kind of numbness. "Maybe," I said quietly, "you should talk to someone about that." She nodded once, eyes glassy. "I didn't come here to ask for anything. I didn't know who else to tell." I got in my car without another word. Watched her through the windshield as she stood there, still and unsure. And then I drove away. Ellie was born in early spring, right around the time the cherry blossoms started blooming along the parkway. I didn't find out until weeks later. Dana gave birth alone. Colin, according to what I eventually heard through a mutual friend, had vanished the night before she went into labor, told her he had a business meeting in Charlotte, then turned off his phone. She called him from the hospital bed. He never answered. 2 weeks after Ellie was born, Colin moved out of his penthouse. No warning, no note, just disappeared. Left Dana with a newborn, a lease she couldn't afford, and a nursery full of designer furniture she couldn't sell because his name was on every receipt. That same mutual friend, Sarah, from Dana's boutique days, told me Dana showed up at her apartment 2 days later, holding Ellie and sobbing on the porch. No diaper bag, no formula, just the baby and a purse. Sarah let her crash on the couch for a while, but it didn't last. Dana's pride got in the way, or maybe the crying baby did. Either way, within the month, Dana had moved again, this time into a rundown third-floor walk-up across from a 24-hour gas station. She picked up shifts at a resale store 2 towns over. Tried to stretch formula coupons. Sometimes posted in local mom groups asking about free strollers or secondhand winter coats. I saw one of the posts once. I recognized the old profile photo of her laughing on a beach somewhere, still clinging to a version of herself that didn't exist anymore. Her boutique was long gone, closed within months of her leaving me. The lease expired, and without her being hands-on, it never stood a chance. Dana's parents weren't much help. They'd never approved of her choices, first me, then Colin. Her mom sent a check once, a small one, then told her over the phone, "You'll have to figure it out on your own." Her dad never called. The silence in her life started to mirror mine. I'd like to say I felt vindicated, that some part of me enjoyed watching karma play out. But the truth was, when I saw that photo of Ellie, chubby cheeks, tired eyes, tiny pink socks, I felt something I didn't expect. Guilt. Not because I'd done anything wrong, but because I knew what it meant to grow up in a home where people stopped showing up. Dana never reached out to me directly. Not then. But Sarah told me she still kept a framed photo of us on our nightstand. From back in Asheville, years ago. The one where we were holding hands, grinning at the camera like idiots, wearing matching dog dad and dog mom t-shirts. "She talks about you," Sarah said once when she called to check in. "She doesn't say it out loud, but it's there. Regret. Shame. All of it." I didn't say anything. "She thought she was choosing freedom," Sarah added. "Turns out, she just traded one kind of burden for another." I nodded. She wanted a reset. Yeah, and she got one. Time passed. Ellie turned 6 months. Then 9. Dana applied for assistance. Got denied. Picked up babysitting gigs. Walked everywhere because she sold her car when rent got tight. She stopped straightening her hair. Stopped wearing makeup. Her social media went dark. But through it all, she kept going. For Ellie. One night, almost a year later, I ran into Dana at the grocery store. She looked thinner, hollowed out. Ellie was asleep in the carrier strapped to her chest. We locked eyes near the frozen foods section. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. Just gave me a small nod. I nodded back, then pushed my cart past hers, my heart rattling in my chest like something too fragile to hold. It was a Sunday in mid-April when I saw her car, an old silver hatchback, one headlight fogged over, parked crooked across the street from my house. I didn't recognize it at first. It wasn't the sleek black SUV she used to drive. This one looked like it might give out at any minute. I peeked through the blinds. The engine was off. She was just sitting there. I could make out the outline of her head resting against the driver's seat, and in the back, a small shape in a car seat, Ellie. She sat there for a long time. I thought about going out, then didn't. Instead, I made coffee, swept the kitchen, anything to keep my hands busy while the clock ticked past 20 minutes. Then the doorbell rang. I froze for a second, then walked slowly toward it and opened it without a word. Dana stood on the porch in an oversized hoodie and worn jeans. Her hair was pulled back in a loose bun. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were glassy, her lips dry. Behind her, cradled in her arms, was Ellie, now a toddler, chubby cheeks pink from the breeze, thumb in her mouth. "Hi," Dana said softly. Her voice cracked on the second syllable. Can I talk to you?" I didn't speak. I just stepped back and let her in. She walked inside slowly, like she was entering a museum or a church, eyes flicking across the room as if expecting to see ghosts. The house looked different. Cleaner. Colder. I kept it that way. Minimal. Like if I kept the space empty enough, nothing else could fall apart. "Everything looks," she started, but trailed off. I nodded. Same furniture. Less noise. She half smiled, but it faded just as quickly. I gestured to the couch. She sat, Ellie still in her arms, and shifted the baby onto her lap. Ellie looked at me, big eyes curious, thumb still in place. Dana took a deep breath. "She's mine. But I know she should have been yours too." I stayed silent. She looked down at Ellie, then back at me. "You don't owe me anything. I know that. You didn't owe me this conversation. You probably wish I'd stayed away." I didn't agree or deny it. Just waited. I needed to tell you," she continued. "Colin left before she was born. He was never coming back. You were right about him, about everything. And I was wrong. About you. About us. About what mattered." I watched as her eyes welled up, but she didn't blink them away. "I think about what we had," she said. "And I know I burned it down. I know I did. But I also know that when I look at her," she looked at Ellie, who was now tugging gently at the string of her hoodie, "I see all the things I denied you." Dana's voice broke then. "And I'm sorry." I looked at the child, at her tiny sneakers and her hair curling up at the ends. She had Dana's chin. But her eyes, they reminded me of my mom's. Of old baby photos of me in our hallway that Dana used to walk past every day. "I didn't come to ask for anything," Dana said, more steady now. "I just needed to say it. And to ask, if there's ever a version of this life where you could, maybe not for me, but for her, be something. Anything. You don't have to answer. I know I don't deserve it." She stood up slowly, cradling Ellie close. "I'll go," she whispered. I didn't stop her. At the door, she turned once, like she wanted to memorize the place. Then she stepped outside and closed the door behind her. I didn't move. Just stood there, staring at the spot where they'd been. Everything was quiet, but my chest felt heavy with noise. Minutes passed. Maybe more. And then, for the first time in a very long time, I walked over to the window. I watched them get into the car. Watched Dana buckle Ellie in, her hands shaking. Watched the little girl glance back toward the house. And as they pulled away, I kept watching, until they disappeared down the street and the world felt quiet again. Too quiet. She didn't text. Didn't call. I half expected a follow-up, a thank you, an apology, something, but nothing came. Just silence. 3 days passed. On the 4th, I came home from work, dropped my keys in the bowl by the door, and saw it, a small envelope, slid under the door. My name written in neat handwriting I hadn't seen in years. Inside was a folded sheet of lined paper. If I could rewrite the last 5 years, I would. I'd choose you every time. But I can't. So instead, I'm choosing honesty. Please, if you can, hear me out one more time. The return address was scribbled on the corner. Her handwriting looked shakier than I remembered. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the letter clutched in my hand until dawn. The next evening, I drove to her apartment. A dingy brick building with chipping paint and broken blinds in the windows. The kind of place I never imagined she'd end up in. She opened the door slowly, like she wasn't sure it would be me. Ellie was there too, curled up on a blanket in the corner, stacking foam blocks in quiet concentration. Dana looked smaller than she had just a week ago. Or maybe it was just the lighting. "You came," she said. I stepped inside without a word. We sat across from each other at the small kitchen table. Same old habit, no music, no distractions. Just words. I meant everything I said the other day, she began. And I know I don't deserve a second chance. I didn't stop her. I was selfish, she continued. And I blamed you for something you never caused. You were steady. I was scared. I wanted things to feel easy again, and Colin was a shortcut to forgetting what we lost. But I never stopped seeing what I'd thrown away. She looked toward Ellie. She's the best thing I've ever done. But I know she deserves more than just a tired mom in a tiny apartment. She needs someone who can teach her how to be steady, how to be kind, how to be good. I felt it coming before she said it. I'm not asking you to forgive me, or to love me again. She blinked fast, her hands trembling. I want to know if you consider being in her life. For her, not for me. The silence in the room swelled. She's yours, Dana said softly. Not biologically. I know that. But in every way that ever mattered. I stared down at the table. My chest was tight. My hands clenched. I know I'm asking something impossible, she added. But I had to. Even if the answer is no. I stood up, still not speaking. Walked over to Ellie, crouched beside her. She didn't flinch. Just handed me a blue block and waited. I took it, then set it gently on top of the one she'd just placed. Then I stood again, walked to the door. Dana rose too, but didn't follow. She just stood there, frozen. I opened the door, paused, and looked back. Her eyes were full of tears, but she didn't let them fall. I stepped out without saying a word. That night, I stood at the window again, watching as their apartment lights flicked off one by one. In the street below, a cat darted across the sidewalk. Somewhere in the building, a baby started crying. And I just stood there, staring out into the dark, holding that little blue foam block in my hand. The days that followed were strange, not painful exactly, just hollow. Like I'd walked out of a room mid-conversation and couldn't remember what I was saying. Dana didn't reach out again, and I didn't go back. The silence was mutual this time. Still, I thought about them. About Ellie's soft stare as she handed me that block, like I was someone she already trusted. About Dana's voice, less defensive now, more real. I wasn't ready to make a choice, but I wasn't ready to let go either. On the third night, after another dinner alone and a news segment I couldn't finish, I logged on to a forum I hadn't touched in years. One of those brutally honest confession boards where people go to unpack their worst mistakes in search of something. I didn't bother making a new username. I wasn't hiding. I titled it, I left my husband, got pregnant by someone else, and now I'm raising my daughter alone. I regret everything. And I just wrote about the marriage I let wither, the man I betrayed, the fantasy that fell apart. I didn't name names, didn't mention cities. I just let it spill, the guilt, the sleepless nights, the sour jealousy I felt watching Ethan from afar, still standing, still solid, while my world crumbled. The responses came quickly. Most were harsh. What did you expect? Actions have consequences. You should be grateful he even spoke to you. But a few understood. One woman replied, you can't undo the damage, but you can build something honest out of what's left. Don't ask him to forgive you. Just love your child. Let her see you try. I reread that one a dozen times. The next morning, I started a journal. Nothing fancy, just a spiral-bound notebook I found under the couch. On the first page, I wrote, things I'll teach her. That mistakes don't define you. That people are allowed to walk away. That strength is quiet, and kindness costs more than pride. That loving someone means showing up, every time, even when it hurts. That if you ever hurt someone, the apology isn't a request. It's a gift, and you don't get to decide if it's accepted. Every day after, I added to the list. Little lessons. Big ones. Some for her, some for me. Ellie started saying more words, book, up, more. She liked sitting by the window in the afternoon light, babbling to her reflection. I started sitting with her, just listening, just being there. Sometimes, I caught myself glancing at the door when a car pulled up outside, hoping, maybe, just maybe, but it never opened. And slowly, I stopped expecting it to. Ethan might never come back. He didn't know us that. I had burned the bridge, and he had every right to leave the ashes behind. But every time Ellie smiled at me, really smiled, I felt like maybe I could still do one thing right. Maybe I couldn't give her a picture-perfect family, but I could give her a mother who tried, one who learned, one who stayed. That would have to be enough. And for the first time since I left him, I believed it might be.